to Kentwood Voices. This week I'm speaking with Roy Lopez and Jonathan Lopez of the Glary Ross Group, Sarah Tyler, Dotson Skaggs, Jared Takushi, David Morrison, Karen Landers, and Solvi Lawrence, an icon in Denver real estate. These two are exceedingly respected professionals.
The way I look at it is, it was kind of like in my DNA to become a real estate agent.
In the last 6 months or so, what have you spent some money on that's most impacted your life?
I bought a crock pot.
I think one of the reasons we're such a successful brokerage, even though we're one of the smaller ones, is we do support one another.
Welcome to Kentwood Voices. This week I'm speaking with Garland Thurman, who was a broker at our Denver Tech Center office. Garland has been with our company for 37 years, and we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. So it's very exciting for me to speak with someone who's been with our company for so long. Garland grew up in the Ozarks on a family farm, and then went to the University of Missouri prior to moving to Colorado with the oil and gas business. And Garland brings that small town community feel to his business. He's very relational. He's built a business with clients who are also friends and gets quite a bit of referrals and repeat business. So it's a great conversation to have, because coupled with his relationships, he also was one of the earlier brokers to embrace social media and digital marketing. And so he does both. And we're looking forward to hearing, Garland, from you about your experiences in brokerage all these years. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
You are so welcome. I'm looking forward to it. What was the genesis that got you into real estate, and what do you bring from your background, your growing up and your history to your practice?
When I got out of school from University of Missouri for you non-believers, I did start to work for an oil company, and I was the youngest person for the company to have my own sales territory. After about 3 years there, the company moved me to Denver because it was a time where profits were way down for oil companies. And on the retail side of it, and I was in their marketing department, not the E&P or exploration and production, but marketing. And so they brought me out to Denver to sell a lot of their service stations that were only doing marginally or possibly not making a profit, truck stops along the interstate, and ground that we had at different interchanges along the interstate. At that time, the company was the second largest truck stop operator in the United States. So anyway, they brought me to Denver, and basically, so that was real estate, and I enjoyed that very much. I found it very interesting. So I started taking a lot of continuing ed courses. It went very well here in the region. Denver was its own region. And I worked hard. I think, probably timing, a lot of luck there too. But the company decided they wanted me to go to St. Paul, Minneapolis, where there were 2 other individuals already doing what I had been doing in the Denver region. So that would have been the 5th state in a 4-year period for me with the oil company. And I decided to stay in Denver. And from all those continuing ed courses I had taken, I didn't know how well I'd do in real estate, but I knew darn sure I would be able to survive from what I'd seen and in taking those classes. And so the day I decided to leave the company, I went down to, I think the address is 300 Spear Boulevard, the headquarters for Moore & Company, and went up to the 3rd floor with a gentleman whose name was Bob Terrell, a commercial broker who I'd been working with when we were selling all these stations and truck stops and raw ground for future development. We didn't care who bought them or who helped them sell us or who helped sell them. So we worked with brokers, and this Bob Terrell at Moore was one of those, and went up to the 3rd floor and said, Bob, I want to talk to you about going into the residential real estate business. he says, well, when you leave the company, let me know. And I said, well, I just did a couple of hours ago. So he picked up his phone and he goes, rotary dial. He says, Bill, I've got a young man here I'd like for you to speak with. Okay, I'll bring him right down. So my first interview ever for a position in the real estate business was with Bill Moore. And that's how thereafter I joined them and started my career. Oh, so, and you'd asked like from my background that what do I bring from my background from a very small town in Missouri, 15 minutes from Branson, which most people have heard of. My town was called Forsyth. When we'd drive down the highway, you'd wave at everyone you saw because you knew them, or they would wave at you. And so it was very relational in that way. And so I think I have that kind of ingrained in my background. And then being on the farm, and we had two different farms. We had beef cattle on one where we raised the beef cattle. We had another one, another family ran for us. And that was a dairy farm where we milked 60 head of cattle every day. And my dad would give me some assignments oftentimes with working with some of the cattle on our own place. And there were some difficult things he would put me into. And so basically I learned there though that, I just would never give up. I would just keep after it until I got accomplished, what he asked me to do with these particular cattle, if it was moving from one pen to another. And anyway, just developed a never give up attitude. And I think I continued that into my school and sports and things of that nature.
And that sort of tenacity is really what predicts success, I think, in real estate. People who never give up and just are creative and continue to find ways to connect with people. So when you moved here, it was around the same time I did. I came 38 years ago, and you talked about the interstate, and I remember it was still called the Valley Highway.
Right. Yeah. So, this is off the subject here, but so I got here and I brought 2 Appaloosas with me, horses, and basically I'd shown a lot of quarter horses over the years in reining classes. And so if there's one thing ever in my life that no one would ever put me in second position on, it was my knowledge with horses. And we won't even go into that background because it's extensive, what I did as a kid. But so I saw on the map, like you're mentioning, polo grounds. So man, I jumped in my car and I go there. I thought, I can play polo with these guys easily. So I get around, I'm in the map, and there's this kind of this high-rise building there, right where it says on the map, polo grounds. There was no polo team for me to join, but a funny little thing that happened to me when I first got here.
You've probably sold a house there now, though. That's not.
Oh yes, of course.
Of course. So tell me, Garland, in recent history, maybe the last 5 years or so, do you have any new beliefs or new habits that have improved your life?
Well, I think that I've become better at being distracted with the shiny object on the wall. I have a tendency to get very distracted with things like, oh, is that neat, or is this computer thing neat? And even I've been into the computers from the very beginning. I can just dig right down in deep to those things on different programs and software and what have you, but I'd have a tendency also to get distracted and take a lot of my time away. So I've gotten better in the last few years at not letting those shiny objects on the wall distract me and take my valuable time.
Right. So time management is important,
Right.
And
Right.
so easy to shove aside your private time or your personal time or what you need to do to re-energize yourself, focus on your family. So I think that's a good tip for anyone, especially newer in the business and newer in the business world. It's okay to take some time for yourself, but use time management to help you avoid those shiny distractions. I
Sure.
like that
Yeah.
answer a lot.
And yes, I have in the last certainly 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, 12, become way more attentive to time with my own family. And so, I used to take too much of my time for my business away from family activities, perhaps, but I don't let that happen any longer. And always very important to me in my life has been my own physical health. I exercise very, very, very regularly. I've played sports all my life and up until just recently. But now I mostly do distance running anymore. So stopped playing basketball a few years ago. But health, along with physical exercise, diet, are really important in my family, and those things.
Yeah. So health is a pretty cogent topic, given that we're coming off a year of coronavirus and how much that changed our life. And you've always been someone I know to be very physically active. It's great to hear that you continued that. I think so many people struggled with it. I know I have. What do you do to keep yourself motivated are you just one of those natural, I get a high off of exercise, or do you have to have some sort of discipline instilled to keep going?
Well, again, I love playing sports, and even with the distance running, that's my wife's passion. So she kind of drags me out there and keeps me going. I call her my coach. But first of all, again, it's good for your health, and I find that I sleep much better if I've had a good workout each day. I also do that now. I do beach body workouts in our basement. So they've got many different programs. Probably the most well-known one is the PX90. I've not done that. That's very extreme. But do those pretty much every day in our basement, as well as the distance running. And I don't know, it's just part of who I am. And if I'm not doing them, my body needs that, it seems like. So I don't sleep as well.
Yeah, sleep is important. That's the other important key to staying healthy. So it's great. What time of day do you generally exercise?
5:50.
5:50 every day.
That's when I get up, and time I get down there, it may be 10, 15, 20 minutes later, but I get up at that time to go work out.
Mm-hmm. So you're working out between 6 and 6:30 a.m. every day.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a little earlier than 6, but well,
Yeah.
no, excuse me. Yeah, 6:30 and 7. I mean, earlier than 7. Yeah.
Right. That's kind of when I try to do it too, but I have to confess I don't every day. So I'm going to use you as a role model, and I'm going to think Garland is up, so I'm going to get up too.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's go back. I want to talk a little more about your practice of real estate, because you are one of our many brokers who have sustained a tremendous career over years. You have a lot of longevity. We have many brokers at Kentwood with a lot of longevity. We really celebrate that. And I've been with the company for 23 years, which is not even close to what so many of you have been with the company. And so let's talk about how you've gone about sustaining such a terrific practice.
In the beginning, I think it was that never give up attitude, right? So you would farm areas, maybe knock some doors, do mail outs and so forth. And obviously that kept me going through the years. But in recent years, with my mentor that I work with, I've learned the importance of working relationally. And so now my business, in fact, it was 2-3 years ago, and I track my business pretty closely, but 2-3 years ago, 100% of my business came from referrals, from clients, business contacts, friends. So that's how I operate now on a very relational basis versus transactional. And I think I've always had a fairly voracious appetite to learn. So I've grown along the way as people started to getting into websites. I think I had probably one of the first websites of a realtor in Denver many years ago, um, and then ultimately that we got into the social media part of it, and so I think having a voracious appetite to learn and continue to grow is important for anyone, no matter what your profession or career is.
So the key is staying in touch with people and being relevant in their lives.
Yes, we so every year I give a party at Thanksgiving, and it's in our home, and it's just a huge event. And my daughter the other day was telling me, so we were talking about, because this past year we had COVID. So anyway, my daughter and I were talking, and obviously she's young, and I said, I don't know how people will feel about if we try to do something an alternative. And she says, well, Dad, you don't realize this is the go-to party of the year. It is, because the food and everything we provide, and it's just a spectacular event. We have, I think, last year we had 74 families come to our home in one day, because it lasts from 3 to officially about 7 o'clock, but it lingers on until 9. And it's kind of an open house, so people come and go. That's a lot of not individuals, families to have in your house in one day. So it's a pretty neat thing. And that's the great thing about our business too, because your clients become your friends. That's really neat.
Yeah, that really is neat. And so this past November, you did something a little different. You had a drive-by party.
We had a drive-through, I called it.
Drive-through.
Drive-thru. So I didn't know how many people would show up for that. We did everything. And then it was actually a record year. That's where we hit the 74 families, actually, which was this past November. People came unbelievably. And so we tried to make it special. We had a nice canopy out front, and we had tables lined up with goodie bags. And this year, we've always had goodie bags for people to go home with, but this year they were spectacular with what we put in those. And most of the stuff that was spectacular was homemade, that my wife made. For instance, she made homemade vanilla extract, a little bottle about this tall. Yeah. If you bought it, it's about a $17 value. Had little tins of cranberry bed, little miniature muffies that my wife makes, just stuff like that in the goodie bags. They were a real hit, and people are still talking. And it may be one of my clients who is a CEO of a company, they're still talking about these goodie bags. So anyway, yeah, so I'm sure they'll keep coming.
Patty is your secret weapon in your business.
She is. No question on that. Yeah. No question.
That's fantastic. Good for you. I think that the people who stayed creative and figured out a way to remain connected really thrived in real estate last year and are this year as well. And it's a testament, and it proves how hungry people are still for connection. Even though we're trying to stay safe and we're trying to be protective of ourselves and our families, we still want that connection. And you figured out a way to combine those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So do you have a favorite quote, Garland, a saying, anything that keeps you grounded or keeps you motivated?
One of them would be gratitude is not only the greatest of all virtues, it's the parent of all others. So that's it. Gratitude. Being grateful is so important for us.
Yeah. Do you do a gratitude journal? Do you say gratitudes in the morning or in the evening?
I have done some of that in the past. I'm not currently doing it, but I have, sure.
Yeah. But
and then journaling too, just journaling in general doesn't necessarily have to be called a gratitude journal, but usually when I would journal, though, I'd tell about my day and if it was good, or certainly things that I was grateful for that happened that day. And I guess that's kind of a thing you can pass on to your children, some point. If you've been doing that for many years,
Right.
Sometimes I'll try to remember something about someone and I'll go back and try thumb through those. It's, 10 years ago. Now, what did that guy say to me at that time type thing, Yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. And it's nice to go back and say, gosh, look what we were experiencing
Mm-hmm.
at this time 4 years ago or whatever. That's really cool. So I think gratitude is something that can lead into the next question, which is advice in our profession. I like to think that our customers, our clients, the consumers out there are grateful for the advice we give when we're professional, ethical, responsible realtors. But we also sometimes hear bad advice. We hear bad advice given to new entrants into the business, and we hear bad advice given to our clients at times. What bad advice would you say people should avoid listening to, or what bad advice have you heard given out in our profession?
Well, bad advice, I guess, would be just simply saying, here's a phone book, start calling people or start mailing people, and people being led down paths as new realtors that would be more of a transactional way of doing business. Again, I would recommend being sure you are relational in your approach. And so you'll probably need some help with that. Maybe you need a business coach. Again, have that voracious appetite for learning with going to particular events. But the bad advice would be directing people down a transactional approach to doing their business.
That's good. That's really good. I have a son who's just getting into real estate in Washington State, so I'll make sure to pass that on. I'll tell him Garland says, don't be transactional. And I was interviewing with a broker who's looking at coming on board at Kentwood probably about a week or two ago, and he said that very thing, Garland. He said he's at a brokerage now that gives them online leads, and he views it as very transactional. And he said, I'm just burned out. I'm tired of it. I don't want to approach my business transactionally anymore. I want to learn how to build relationships. And I think Kentwood does that. So you're just a role model for exactly how to build a relational business.
Thank you. Well, it's my business is solid. Every year it just keeps coming right on. It flows out the pipe, the pipe full of leads. It just happens, whether I do anything or not. Obviously, the more I do, though, the better it is. But anyway, those and it's so rewarding when you can help someone, that has been sent to you by someone that particular individual trusts.
Well, and you are doing something, whether you think so or not, whether it appears that you're doing something very overt, you're always doing something because you're a relational broker. You're keeping in touch with people and you've got all these terrific relationships, and they think of you, I think, both as a friend and as a counsel and an advisor. And that's the best, that's the sweet spot for a real estate broker to be in.
Right.
So have you had any worthwhile investments? I'm going to switch gears now and find out, what investments have you made recently that have been really worthwhile or impacted your life for the good?
The investment in me.
Investment in anything. I've heard everything from crock pot to a new website.
Well, no, the investment in me and my own growth and focusing on all the circles of one's life that are important, and growing myself spiritually, personally, and in my business, financially, but investing in myself and learning and growing, and keep getting better at how I lead my life in general.
Yeah, learning. Your love of learning and your love of educating yourself kind of resonates throughout this discussion we're having. And I think that is a perfect answer for you, Garland. I'm completely not surprised that your answer is investing in yourself and continuing to learn and continuing to grow and keeping up this practice of gratitude. That just really reflects who I know you to be. And that's why, again, back to why you're so successful with your clients. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if you really know what your principles are, your beliefs are, where your roots are, it helps you. It's easier to make decisions sometimes on maybe some hard choices in life, be it business or family wise. And I can tell you about other investments such as in real estate or properties, but we all know those are good things for sure. But investing in yourself is really important.
Investing in bad properties is just chalk that up to lessons learned, right? That's part of the
I've never
education.
invested in a bad property.
Oh,
All
good.
my properties I've always invested in have always been fantastic. I was led astray several years ago, though. I lost about, at the time, $250,000 on a business. I sold many of my rentals. I probably sold 4 or 5 rental properties and invested a lot of money on a business outside of real estate. And boy, that was, I guess, a lesson. But anyway, I came back,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So did you have any kind of a gut instinct in that? Like, did you say, yeah, I know I'm taking a risk, but I'm going to try it because I should diversify? Or did it just seem like a good idea at the time?
It seemed like a good idea at the time to make a lot of money. And perhaps the people I was following at that time weren't maybe the best people to be following. And in hindsight, that is, at least. So, I mean, we had stuff over in Hawaii. I opened 3 retail shops down in Missouri. But, that took some time too away from my real estate business, although I kept the real estate business going. But, I learned a lot from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what in the last 5 years, what are you better at saying no to? Do you say no to distractions? You said something about the shiny objects earlier.
Ooh, well, yeah, I think that I do, I know how important my time is. So I get that a little bit of my hillbilly accent came out there, I think, then from Southwest Missouri. But I get lots of calls, like even with our church. I was on the diaconate for a few years with them, but I get lots of calls to do this and that committee and serve on this. Like I try to pick and choose, what's probably of most interest to me and where I can do the best good. I was on the board of trustees for 6 years, I believe it was, for the Colorado Children's Chorale years ago. And that was fabulous. And that is a fabulous organization. If any of you have children who might be interested in singing and choral and performing on stage, check out the Colorado Children's Chorale. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm a little more, you hate to say no sometimes to some people, but if you can't do a really good job at it, just don't do it. Say no.
Yeah, that's good. So when you feel overwhelmed or you get unfocused temporarily, what do you do to bring yourself back or keep yourself grounded?
Go for a run.
Yeah.
Recent years, go play basketball, but work out somehow. Do a workout, run, do some distance running, exercise. That brings me back. It takes away the stress, takes away the feeling of being overwhelmed, and grounds me again.
That's what most people seem to say, either go for a walk or go for a run or get outside. I think that's reflective of our Colorado lifestyle.
Oh, yeah, I love being outside, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to ask you one last question. Do you have any books? Do you have any podcasts, any TV shows, any movies that you want to recommend while we're on this video? Besides Kentwood Voices, of course.
Well, There's one book that I have been giving out to clients for the last few years, and it's called The Immigrant Edge. And that's spelled Immigrant, Emigrant, immigrant. Most people think of immigrant as being spelled IMM, correct?
Mhm.
Well, it's actually EM if you're leaving a country. And people who do that oftentimes are coming to a strange place. They have to learn all over again and restart. That book was written by who I call my mentor, Brian Buffini. And in that book, he gives the 7 traits of an immigrant coming to a new country. There's 7 traits that help them succeed. I think that for business people, it's just fantastic book to learn and help grow your business with. And again, obviously, it's going to come down to the relational side of it. But I think I heard somewhere that I think of 13% or anyway, the majority of the Forbes 400 are companies that were established, corporations, big companies that were established by immigrants coming to America. So
I love Brian Buffini, and I had not heard of that book. So thank you for the recommendation. I'm definitely going to be looking that one up. I think that sounds fascinating.
it is. It's a good book.
Yeah.
So The
Do you have
Immigrant
anything you want to
Edge.
say? The immigrant edge. Do you have anything you want to say, Garland, to sum this up? Do you want to reflect on anything or give us some final thoughts?
Well, after all these years, I wanted, and what you told me a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to thank you for it because you said, Garland, it's been a number of years that you've been here and it looks like it's working out and I'm going to keep you on. And I really appreciated that. I know it was a long trial period for me, but I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, good. You're going to keep me on.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. No, I just, here, Kentwood has a terrific history, background. There's a lot we can be proud about with our company and the things that we've achieved and the people who have worked at Kentwood, the integrity we've had over the years. And today, we have so many tools available to us the way things are set up with our marketing department downstairs. And I think I have a tendency to forget the tools we have available to us, but there's a lot to be proud of for being here at Kentwood. We just need to, I'd love to see us, I can't wait for us all to get back into the office so that we can share face to face again and remind ourselves of who we are, where we've come from, and there's just so many resources here to help us. It's not just the tools, let's say down in the marketing department, and the many things they can help you with, be it websites, be it mail outs, be it social media, you name it. But the people who are in the office, you depending on what it is you're having a challenge with, there's got to be someone in our company that's had experience with it, and they can help you tremendously get going and be a success with it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think you're right. And thank you for the reminder to me that we should be reminding everyone in the company what we have, because we sure do have a lot of tools and we probably could get a little better about reminding all of you. But when we get back in the office, which isn't going to be too long, we will be able to collaborate. And that's one of the things I've loved about Kentwood for the 23 years I've been, is what a collaborative kind of environment. The fact that we just all help each other succeed and we all rise together. So thank you for being a part of that, Garland. And let me remind everyone, we're talking today with Garland Thurman, who's in the Kentwood Denver Tech Center office. And I appreciate your time today. I think this was a really fun interview. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you're very welcome.